All right, two more games. Los Angeles Rams 30, Seattle Seahawks 13. Got to admit, this was a big surprise for me.
Yeah.
I was surprised by this outcome. Very impressed by the Rams and their young team. All right, all offseason we're talking about the depth chart doesn't make any sense. It's Matthew Stafford, it's Aaron Donald, a couple more veterans, and a whole bunch of unknowns. Well, some of the unknowns became knowns. Puka Nacua finishes with 119 yards, as does Tutu Atwell, both at 119. Tutu becoming a bit of a deep threat here for the Rams, which was fun to see. And this was the good Matthew Stafford. The thing I used to always say when he was in Detroit, there'd be 3 or 4 games a year where he looked like a top 3 quarterback. That was Stafford in this game. Big time throws left and right. Just, you saw those end zone replays and he's thrown into these windows that don't even exist or he's anticipating them. Stafford looked awesome. And I thought the entire preseason, the buzz was Stafford's healthy for the first time in multiple years, including the Super Bowl run. And he's looking sharp. And I didn't know what to make of that information because everything around him looked like it was bad. But I don't know, man. That was very impressive by Stafford, but the Rams as a whole, the way their offensive line played, the youth played, and then Stafford looking elite in this game.
Yeah, we had a couple of emails on our bet show. One of them was the Barbarian. It's like, Barbarian's getting 10 sacks. Well, after 1 week, that looks pretty good. And then the other one was somebody saying that the Rams, I forget what the exact bet was, but it was like the Rams are going to be way better. They're going to be better than the Seahawks, whatever it was. It was something like that. And coming out of this game, you're like, maybe that one was right as well. And his argument was essentially they have the best quarterback, they've got the best pass rusher, they've got the best head coach. Like they're set up in several really important ways to be good. And you're like, yeah, but the ways they're not good are problematic. Well, one of the ways they weren't supposed to be good, look at the receivers that played in this game. Puka Nacua, rookie. Tutu Atwell, hasn't really done anything yet. Van Jefferson, Ben Skoranek, who moonlights as a fullback, and Demarcus Robinson, who's not good. Those are their 5 wide receivers that played snaps in this game. You're like, if you were told that going into a game, you're like, this passing offense is going to stink. And yet, 2 of those guys had 119 yards, and Matthew Stafford looked as good as he's ever looked. I mean, if that's going to manifest throughout the season, the Rams will be different than people expected them to be. And by the way, this was kind of the same story with the offensive line. Like a group that you're like is going to be problematic and cause problems. Steve Avila, rookie, Joe Noteboom, who has been bouncing around different positions and looked bad. Alaric Jackson, Coleman Shelton, and Rob Havenstein, the one like ever present that's always there and good. I mean, that's a group that you're like, that's one of the worst offensive lines in the league. And they didn't allow basically any pressure. They were good. I mean, those are the 2 biggest weaknesses maybe on the team. Ended up being strengths.
Yeah, man. It was like I'm really impressed. I mean, this was fun Stafford, man. He had 40 attempts, 11.9 average depth of target. It was aggressive Stafford. Now, he can't do this every week. Like he can't play at this level every single week. But this was the thing that he would do in Detroit where they had no run game. And I want to highlight one of the funniest stat lines in the NFL this week. Cam Akers goes 22 carries for 29 yards, and he had a long run of 12, which means the other 21 carries went for, 17 yards for Cam Akers? Just saying. When people used to make excuses for Stafford and say he has no run game in Detroit, this was like a Detroit game. They weren't Kyron Williams had 2 really nice runs on the goal line, had their first 2 touchdowns. But they didn't have much of a run game. Stafford's just not YOLOing, but being aggressive down the field, throwing to Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell. Both guys did a great job. Puka, I liked him during draft time. The contortionist made an awesome catch on the sideline. He looked good. This was like a Detroit-type game for Stafford. Elite Detroit game for Stafford. So I don't know what to make of that going forward for the Rams, other than they're going to be more fun than I anticipated because of all these young players that we're seeing. And especially when Cooper Kupp went on IR, it's like, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
But they looked so good in this game.
The most impressive
thing, controlled it. They ran twice as many plays as the Seahawks.
Yeah, the most impressive thing about it was it didn't go in their favor early. Like Seattle was winning early in the game. It was pretty even, and then the Rams, as the game progressed, pulled away and sort of established themselves as the better team over the course of the full 60 minutes. Like, if we were painting a picture of a way the Rams would win this game heading into it, you would be like, well, A couple of things will go weird or bounce their way early, and they'll get out to a lead, and then the game will get away from Seattle. And it wasn't that at all. Like, the Rams just sort of established themselves as better in this game as it went on. The other thing that really jumped out was, Aaron Donald is still Aaron Donald. Like, he's still a problem. He's still a wrecking force. He's still able to beat up on offensive lines. Don't write him off yet.
No, do not. Overall, I don't know. The Rams defense was pretty good. Geno Smith, meh. I thought Geno ends up with like 4 yards per attempt. I thought he'd be a little bit more aggressive, especially as they're falling behind, and it just wasn't there, man. The Seattle team disappointed in all the ways that they were supposed to be good. Now, I'm not ready to write Seattle off either, because week 2 last year, they got shut out by the Niners, right? They got shut out, and it was like, it's Geno Smith. Guy's never been a starter in the NFL. So week 2 last year, they looked horrible, and then they continued to bounce back. Pete Carroll's had them bouncing back, and I'm sure he will. But this was a dud for Seattle. Plus, for the last 5 years now, I've been watching the Seattle pass rush. When's the pass rush going to get here? They're investing in all these second-round edge defenders. They bring in Draymond Jones, and nothing against this Rams offensive line that you said was impressive.
Yeah.
Seattle gets nothing. And, this was laid an egg across the board here in Seattle, and impressed by what the Rams did.
Yeah, the complete and total lack of pass rush from Seattle would be a big concern for them. Like this, it's not like the Green Bay Chicago conversation where like, is it this offensive line is really good or that defensive line is really bad? Because it could be either, knowing what we know about those two units. That should not be the same conversation for this dynamic, because there's no evidence to say that Rams offensive line is good. So why was Seattle's defensive line, why was their pass rush not better?